In today's Necron painting video, I'm going to paint the Wargame exclusive General Grivus miniature that I converted into a Hexmark Destroyer, and at the same time I want to chat about how Games Workshop ruined my Necron painting scheme. And it's coming right up.
Necrons!
Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, today I'm painting the Wargame exclusive General Grivus miniature, an awesome miniature. However, it looks a bit different because I've converted it into a Hexmark Destroyer. Of course, there's a link to the conversion video in the description below if you want to check it out. Okay, so let's get this Hexmark Destroyer painted. I'm looking forward to painting this one. It's got a lot of detail on it. However, I'm going to be painting it exactly like I do all my other Necrons, so if you've seen those videos, you probably know exactly how I'm going to paint it, which is why I thought I would make this video a little bit more exciting and have a chat about how Games Workshop have ruined my paint scheme. So, first of all, as always, I'm dry brushing the miniature with Ironbreaker. Now, of course, I primed it in black primer and I'm painting it sub-assembly so that I can get to all the nooks and crannies of things like the cloak, the inside of the cloak, and of course into all of the arms and all of the weapons. So yeah, sub-assembly painting sometimes is a lot easier with certain miniatures. So yeah, I'm just going to dry brush with Ironbreaker first, then I'm going to go over it with Runefang Still. So very easy, just dry brushing. Okay, so I'm going to take you away from Necrons just for a few minutes as we talk about Eldar, or Eldari as it's now called. My Eldar army is purple and white. I absolutely loved my paint scheme. It was painted with the old Citadel paints, and of course Games Workshop, for I think copyright reasons if I'm not mistaken, had changed their whole paint range, and yeah, it messed up my army because I couldn't get exactly the same purple for my Eldar. Actually, it was the same for my Necrons as well. The gold that I was using, shining gold, the new golds just didn't match it. I had all my armies half painted. Games Workshop just changed the paint range and messed up my armies. Now luckily it wasn't too much of an issue, and probably this is why Games Workshop changed their paint range, because Vallejo also had exactly the same paint range. It's called the Vallejo Game range, and the Vallejo Game paints are exactly the same as the old Games Workshop paints were. So because of my old armies being half painted, and when I want to add a unit to them, of course I want it to be the same paint, I've had to move over to Vallejo for all of my old paints. Of course, any new armies going forward, I can still use the new Games Workshop paint. So Games Workshop almost ruined my paint schemes previously. However, they really have ruined it now. Okay, back to the miniature. I did dry brush everywhere, including the base. Now the base has a commissar on it, a dead commissar, but I still dry brushed that with the silver colours. It helps bring out the detail and allowing me to see the detail of the model, plus some of the areas are going to be silver anyway. And then I had a look at the cloak. I went online and had a look at some images of General Grivus to find out what colours the cloak's going to be. It's a dark red on the inside of the cloak, and the outside of the cloak is a almost greyish black. That's how I'm going to describe it anyway, or at least on some of the pictures that I saw. So I started with the inside of the cloak and I painted that with corn red, and I did 2 coats just to build up the colour, and then I turned it over and on the back I used Ishan grey. But I found Ishan grey was just too grey, so I mixed in a bit of black with that colour just to make it a bit darker, and I painted the outside of the cloak with that colour. From then on I was just dry brushing it. I dry brushed with corn red and then Mephiston red to build up the red, and then the back of the cloak I dry brushed with Ishan grey straight from the pot, and then with Dawnstone grey. Okay, so back to my story. When I started my Necron army many years ago, 2001, I came up with a paint scheme, of course, for the army. It was silver, yes, just like Terminator, because I love that movie, I was inspired by that movie, and Necrons, well, they're very Terminator-esque, let's face it. So I went for a silver finish. However, I wanted my characters, my HQ units, my Necron Lords and Destroyer Lords, which were the only characters at the time, to be a bit special, a bit different. So I painted them gold as opposed to silver. Now I've kept this paint scheme all through the years. All of my characters are gold. The only time I add some silver to the unit is if it has a more mechanical part of a body. So for example, I did a Destroyer Lord conversion with a Wraith body. The Wraith body itself I did silver, but the top half of the miniature was gold. And I did the same for my Skorpek Lords. They had silver legs and then they had the gold body. So I kept that scheme very consistent amongst my miniatures. Even when I got the female Necron miniatures from Wargame exclusive. Of course, there's a link to Wargame exclusive in the description below. You can check out their Necro Cyborg miniatures, some awesome Necron proxy miniatures. One of them, which I think is called the Black Widow, has spider legs, and I painted the legs silver and the top of the body gold. Again, I just kept my paint scheme all the way through the miniatures. Okay, back to the painting for a second. So next, I painted the green. I did warpstone green on the details. There's an orb in the middle of the chest, and I painted some of the guns with this colour as well. I did a couple of coats just to build up the colour. I also dry brushed the base with this colour. Then I moved on to mute green, and I dry brushed the base with mute green. And then I highlighted the warpstone glow green with mute green. Pretty standard stuff. Base, several coats, build up the colour. And then a highlight, again several coats, just build up the colour. Okay, so back to my story. So the Hexmark Destroyer comes out in 9th edition and it is a character. However, it isn't a HQ unit, it's an elite unit. So when it came to painting my Hexmark Destroyers, I decided to paint it silver, because it's not a HQ unit. And I did it with a hyperphase effect. This was an effect that I've been wanting to paint on my miniatures for years, and I had a lot of fun painting this paint scheme. I've got two of them, one of them converted with a Wraith body, and the other one is just a normal model. However, of course, in 10th edition, HQ units are gone. That's right, HQ units are gone, and now all we have is characters. We have epic characters and just normal characters. I've painted my Hexmark Destroyer in silver. I would have painted it in gold if it had been a HQ unit, but it wasn't. It was an elite unit. It was a character, yes, but an elite character. And now Games Workshop have got rid of HQs, only characters, and now my army is ruined. Okay, that's an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. My army is no longer consistent. I've got one character which is not gold, and it's annoying. Okay, so back to painting. Next, I painted the face of General Grivus in skull white. I know he's more of a browny sort of whitey colour, but my models have white faces, so I went for white. I did skull white, watered down, several coats, just building up the colour until it looked good. That was the white face done, and then I was on to the commissar on the base. I'm not going to give too much detail on this because I was making it up as I went along. I looked at a picture of a commissar and I just painted it. A black coat. I decided he would be wearing gloves, so I didn't have to paint flesh hands. I think he's wearing gloves on this miniature. I painted flesh on the face, of course, and then I did red for the hat and the collar, and then I did some gold. I painted some leather straps. I washed it with Rakan Flesh. It was the only wash I had. I didn't have any Earthshade, but it worked okay. And then I just highlighted each of the colour. Very easy highlight on the black. I just dry brushed it with Dawnstone Grey. And then the other colours I just highlighted a couple of times with the corresponding highlight colour. Right, back to my story. So, what do I do now? One answer would be to repaint them. And potentially, if I hadn't painted the hyperphase effect on my 2 Hexmark Destroyers, then I may have been tempted when I painted this guy to repaint them and just paint them all in gold so they match the army. However, I really like the fact that I've got these unique miniatures that have this hyperphase effect. So I didn't really want to repaint these particular miniatures just because of the hyperphase effect. So I'm left with a character unit which isn't gold and doesn't match my army. Now, of course, I can come up with some lore, some fluff, which is the reason why these particular units don't have any gold on them, so it's not really too much of a problem, let's be honest. However, it is slightly annoying, and I don't think sometimes Games Workshop appreciate or maybe don't care that every time they make a change, a rules change, it messes people's armies up. Oh, Eldar jet bikes. I tell you what, let's change the gun options on there. Everybody has old Eldar jet bikes, don't have the right guns anymore. Yeah, we've got some new bikes now, so buy these. These have got the right gun options. Games Workshop are very clever, of course. They are here to sell models, and they'll do almost anything to sell models, it would seem. However, yeah, they do end up ruining people's armies quite a lot. Okay, that's enough of Games Workshop slagging off, because, you know, Games Workshop have brought me a lot of fun over the years, so I do appreciate that Games Workshop is a company trying to sell miniatures. However, sometimes it can be a bit annoying. Right, back to this miniature. After I painted the Commissar, I got some white paint and I went into the recesses of the sword, which is on the base, and then I put some Tesseract glow over that. I decided to do some cool blood effects on the Commissar because he is badly wounded, and then I super glued it all together. I painted the rim of the base, and then I got some stones from my garden and I painted them up in my Necron colours. I've got quite a few stones in here because I'm also painting the Wargame exclusive Death Marks and Immortal conversion kits at the same time. Videos on those coming soon. So I've got quite a few rocks here, but I only used one on this particular miniature. And there he is, all done. I'm really happy how this miniature came out. It still has a General Grivus feel about it, even after my conversion of giving him 6 guns, with the colouring of the cloak and of course his head, which just looks exactly like General Grivus, and then the way I've painted it, although it's not exactly the same colours, it has the feel of General Grivus. And it's such a cool miniature. If you have an opportunity to get one of these for yourself, then I highly recommend it. As I said, I've got the conversion video. Here it is for you to watch. Here is a playlist featuring some of my other Necron conversions. And here is a playlist featuring my other Necron painting tutorials for you to watch.